All I need is one mic. Yeah. All I need is one mic.
Hey everybody, welcome back to One Mic, where I watch shit so you don't have to. And today I'm here to talk about episode 6, the series finale of the HBO limited series Laetitia. I gotta say, I don't I don't like saying this because I'm still kind of conflicted on how I feel about it, but I largely hated this episode. And it's not from a technical perspective. It would be if this were a fictional show, but I keep reminding myself that this is based on real events. So the implausible nature of the behavior of some of the characters, it bothers me a lot. But I have to remind myself, like, if they're just reporting what actually happened, then I can't really shit on the show for that. Now, there are a couple of, there's one thing in particular that I am holding against the show that I do feel like they fucked up. But majority of my issue with this episode, it revolves around one issue, and it kind of revolves around one issue. It involves multiple characters, but it revolves around one issue. It's hard for me to really like come down hard on the episode for this if this is just how this person behaved in real life. But it's not plausible. It doesn't track with the rest of the show. And it really infuriated me watching the show. Like if this was a fictional show, I would be lambasting this episode because there's. Okay, I'm just gonna get into it. So, episode 1, maybe episode 2, at some point, very very early, I said I saw all the clues that the foster dad was a piece of shit. Like I just saw the clues, and the biggest one was after Laetitia died, Jessica had her head on his lap, and he starts to caress her face, and she moves his hand away. And I thought, okay, this guy's doing something. He may not be involved in Laetitia's murder or whatever, but there's something wrong with this foster dad. And then we found out last week's episode that, yeah, he's not only is he just a regular piece of shit, he's also an extracurricular piece of shit who not only was raping Jessica, but was also, at the very least, like sexually assaulting her friends. I don't know if he ever fully like did anything with them. We saw him try to do something with Lola, but we don't know if there were other moments where it got farther or if he got farther with other friends of Jessica. But be that as it may, we find out that the foster dad is in fact the piece of shit that I said he was. Then for some inexplicable fucking reason, for a 20-minute portion of this one episode, so we've had like 5 hours and 40 minutes of this guy being a piece of shit and Jessica clearly not being into him. But for some reason, during a 20-minute portion of this episode, Jessica wants to go on vacation with them. She wants to be adopted by them as if she's not 19 years old. She wants to be adopted by them. She wants their last name. She's laying on the couch with him with in short shorts with their legs draped across him while he's like doing whatever he's doing. Why the fuck was she so into this guy for like 20 minutes? And then she talks to their friends and then they decide to go to the police and turn him in. And I'm just like, what is up with this portion of this episode? Like, she has not been, like, if she was kind of like, I guess, passive about him, you know, throughout the whole rest of the series, I probably would feel less different. But she clearly was not fucking with this guy. And it's very clear she was not enjoying any of this sexual abuse that was taking place. Why did she inexplicably just decide, like, I'm going to be really into him for like 20 minutes and then the show doesn't address this in any kind of way? Like, I don't know. I'm so confused and like, I'm telling myself that Jessica must have done this in real life because I can't imagine why the show would choose to insert something completely illogical and nonsensical that does not track with what we have seen throughout the entire rest of the season. Why they would choose to insert something that fucking stupid willfully, like without any kind of need. Like, we're just gonna put this in here just for fuck's sake. Like, it doesn't matter who's gonna do it. She has to have done that in real life, but why? And I can't put myself into the shoes of someone who has been through what Jessica had been through. And I said that in an earlier episode that, like, it's annoyed me that Jessica's always just like, I've never liked or understood that when I see it in television shows, when people are trying to get important information from someone and that person has that important information and they just sit there stone-faced and don't say anything. And I said it in the video where I talked about that, I said, like, but I can't begin to understand the thought process of someone who's been through what Jessica has been through. But even though I said, okay, I can't understand this, so I'm not going to judge it harshly. And then again, remembering that this is based on a real person's behavior, so I can't use it as a knock against the show. I accepted that for 5 hours and 40 minutes just to get 20 minutes of her all of a sudden being totally into this guy. And I can't, that shit pissed me off so bad. I'm like, what the fuck is this? Like, what do you mean you want him to adopt you? Like, you just left the police station talking about, well, not talking about him molesting, but like being questioned about him molesting Lola, which I don't know if Jessica knows he did it, but she knew that he had done it to her. So she left that situation, and then it's just like, yeah, let me just totally like put on the tiniest shorts I have and go drape my legs across his body. Like, what kind of sense does this make? And again, I could look at it as if it weren't for the fact that she had brushed his hand away earlier, that she seemed very standoffish toward him. Okay, fine. But she was like that, and then just inexplicably for 20 minutes is like, oh, I'm totally into these two. And then goes right back to not hating him again, but being honest and actually saying what happened to her. So, like, oh man, like, if this were a fictional show, I would be dragging the fuck out of this episode. I mean, I'm doing that right now, but I can't begin to understand why Jessica would behave the way she did, because I can't relate to what Jessica's been through. But for the purposes of looking at it as a TV show and looking at 5 hours and 40 minutes of Jessica clearly being awkward around this guy, to insert this random 20-minute segment into the finale where she's like really into him and provide no explanation for this or have no one discuss it, kind of like it would be nice to have like a third party kind of come in like, hey, I saw you being really lovey-dovey with your foster dad. Didn't you tell me he was raping you? Like something like that to kind of like help with that. And even there's this other woman there who I'm assuming is like a former foster child of them. And she said something like, careful, mom, dad might choose Jessica over you or something like that. And she's like, what are you talking about? Don't make a big deal out of it. Whatever. But I'm like, this other woman sees it as inappropriate, probably because he probably was raping her when she lived there. And again, they just did this. And I don't understand. Like, was this inserted just to have a moment of, or you could have that the other woman say like, oh, that looks inappropriate, to kind of like, because that raised the question in my mind, like, did he rape this woman too? Like maybe she used to live there and he used to rape her when she lived there. So she sees the signs, like if that was inserted to create that moment, you don't need it, because that one moment enhances what we know about the foster dad. None. It doesn't enhance it at all. It enhances it 0%. It doesn't help the narrative regarding the foster dad. But that 20-minute portion of her seemingly being into this guy completely destroys the credibility of everything we've seen before and after. So if it was done to kind of service this one scene with this other woman that was in the house, the cost was much greater than the reward. And I don't understand why they would do that. Oh my gosh. I just watched it because I'm still like fucked up by this. Like I just don't understand it, why they did this. And really, I'm doing it a service by saying 20 minutes. It was probably less than that. So we look at it, like 95% of this season, Jessica was like, fuck this guy. And then for some reason, 5%, she's like there was a scene where she's like laying in the bed and she's like doing something with her fingers and she's like saying her name, like Jessica Patron or whatever. Like you're having lovey-dovey, like imaginative dreams about having this piece of shit rapist last name when just a few episodes ago you wouldn't even let him touch you, and I'm supposed to like believe this, and there's no explanation for this. Like, oh, okay, I'm gonna stop. So this is why my avatar is a picture of me yelling, because that's like when I don't like something, this is what you get. But Fortunately, I cover things that I mostly like, so now the avatar kind of doesn't make sense, but that's why it's like that, because I go the fuck in when I don't like something. But there's another there are other couple other issues I had with this episode, both in universe and out. So like in universe, you know, we have the counselor lady that kind of like helped them with foster care and all that kind of stuff. She eventually she talks to the cop and explains kind of like, I questioned both girls separately. I followed protocol, yada yada yada. I believed Lola, but we couldn't get anybody to cop to it. And then Jessica was 18, so we kind of let it go. And she's like, we had what was the thing she said that I really hated? She said, let me see, I might have written it down. I didn't like how she opened by saying I was gonna tell you. Like, motherfucker, he asked you directly. That's another thing that pissed me off about this show. This cop was incredible. He sensed everything, and he asked people constantly, "Are you keeping a secret from me? Are you keeping a secret from me?" No, 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 no. And then in the finale, they're like, yeah. It's like, I was gonna tell you. No, you weren't, because he asked you, and not only did you not tell him, you got mad at him for asking. Like, come on, man. Like, shut the fuck up, man. That might be the thing that I was thinking of. I was like, what was the other thing that she said? She said I remember now. She said she was gonna, I don't remember. I just read it. I can't give myself credit here. She said she said you have to take into account the impact of a scandal, and that she was weighing the pros and cons on bringing this to light. So while you're over here doing the calculus on whether or not you should tell this cop about this, Jessica's living with a fucking rapist. While you're over here doing the fucking mathematics, like that meme with the woman looking confused, and it's like all the fucking mathematical equations around her head. While you sitting there doing that shit, weighing the pros and cons of a scandal, a little girl's being raped. So when she starts walking out, she quits her. When it comes to light, they play a news clip about the father being arrested, the foster dad being arrested and charged with it. She packs up all his shit and quits. I said, good. You don't need to have this job. You failed this girl. And you can look at it from a sympathetic way, like, oh, there's all these other kinds of things. There's she had, like, what she said, weighing pros and cons, all this kind of shit. You can look at that. But at the end of the day, while you were weighing a decision for something that you felt in your heart was going on, that you believed to be happening, while you were sitting there making decisions and oh, what about this? What about that? Weighing the pros and cons, yelling at the cop for asking you if you were keeping a secret, knowing full fucking well you were. And then now you want to go, oh yeah, I was gonna tell you. Meanwhile, Jessica's being raped by this fucking foster dad while you're weighing the calculus of whether or not what decision you should make, and snapping at the cop for clearly knowing that you're lying. And like that's the second most angering thing to me about this, was that aspect of it. And again, that's kind of like it's hard for me to be overly critical of the show because of that, because if that's what the counselor did, then the show is obligated to report what actually happened. And I could see this kind of thing happening, where there's all kinds of other factors that weigh into whether or not you would want to divulge that sort of information. But at the end of the day, one of the girls is dead and the other one is being raped. And you're sitting here lying to the police about what you know. So now you've gone from being reckless to being stupid to being dangerous. And like I can't sit here and be like, oh well, she had all these excuses. No, you deserve to quit your job because you were a failure at it. So like that pissed me off too, clearly. And another issue I had with this episode. Now this is something that I can hang on the show creators and the show itself. We never got a resolution to Laetitia's torso being separate from the rest of her body. So a woman finds the torso in a lake, and we have one brief scene with Tony where he says some guy named Mr. X did it, and he refuses to admit that he did it. That's it. We don't know. Well, one, we don't actually know if Tony cut the person up or not. I believe Tony did. The person, it was Laetitia. I don't know if Tony actually did it, but I believe that Tony did, but the show wasn't clear about that. He lied all the way till the end, or he was telling the truth. But either way, we don't know. And most importantly, we don't know why the torso was separate. That, like, I thought that was going to be important information. Like, was she pregnant or something? I'm like, why would you put and it couldn't have like escaped because it was all in like that chicken wire. So if he had put the whole thing in there, the one part of it wouldn't have escaped. So he purposely kept the torso separate from the rest of the body, and we never find out why. And like that bothers me because they made a big deal about it. And I mean, you can't help but make a big deal about it if that's what happened in real life. But like, I don't know. I feel like there's some sort of hole in the storytelling here where maybe this connects a little bit better, and we find out, we could find out why he had the torso separate, or why, or even if he didn't, did it just somehow get separated from the rest of the body? Was it not actually in the chicken wire? Because being in the chicken wire makes me think it was in there. Everything was wrapped up tight. So I don't know. There's some holes there, and that bothered me. If that was the only issue I had with the episode, I probably would have mentioned it as like offhand kind of like, oh, I didn't really like this thing, but everything. But the shit with the portion with Jessica being really into the foster dad for some inexplicable fucking reason, I can't. Oh, and then like I thought I was done. I'm not. She goes to meet with the original piece of shit father, and he's picked out like a coffin for Laetitia and says they're gonna bury her in some place or whatever, some city, I don't know. And Jessica gets full on pissed off and says that she needs to be in the city that they were raised in with the foster dad and all this kind of stuff. I'm like, why are you caping for this motherfucker, man? Like what is happening right now? Then she goes to visit him later, and she rails into him. Like, I found out that you raped our mother. I found out that you did this, did that. All very fair reasons to hate this guy. And then you go and run back and lay in the lap of the dude who's been raping you. Like, what is that? What is this? This makes no sense. Oh my gosh. All right, so I didn't like this episode. I didn't like how this ended. Again, if this is what happened in real life, I have to sit there and I gotta hold that. Like, that's what happened, and they reported what happened. It is what it is. But there's a lot of shit that did not make sense in this final episode. And if this were a fictional show that someone wrote and created from their mind, I'd have been like, you are a fucking shitty fucking writer, because this makes no fucking sense whatsoever. And if I would love to, if there's like an article where Jessica explains, like the real life Jessica, like, especially tied to this show, like, yeah, I watched the show and I totally was not into that guy like that. Or and she's like, I watched the show and yeah, I had a moment where I don't know, I don't even know how you explain that shit, honestly. But if she did, hey, I'd love to read it, because this was difficult to watch, because I'm just infuriated at the hypocrisy of the hypocrisy and the implausibility of again, she could feel those feelings, and I can't understand why you would feel that way, because I have not been in that situation. But it's the lack of consistency. When 95% of the show you behaved as someone who did not like their rapist, and then for some random 5% portion inserted into the middle of the final episode, for some reason, you were totally into this guy. And I that's the part that fucks me up, because I have trouble believing that could happen in real life. I don't have any trouble believing that she could experience almost something of a Stockholm syndrome while she's living with him. That makes sense to me. I could buy that. But then if that played out, that would have to play out through the show, where we see like oh man, maybe she's like just not, she understands she's being abused, but she's this is her foster father, like something where we could say this behavior doesn't make sense on the face of things, but we can look underneath the surface and go, okay, I could see why maybe someone in this situation could deal with this under this level of trauma, if it played out that way the whole time. But the fact that 95% of the time it played out like she hated this guy, and then 5% randomly, inexplicably she didn't, that's what bothers me. So all in all, though, I do think this was a really good series to watch. I really enjoyed the experience of watching this show and learning about these characters. I thought the guy that played Tony was incredible. I thought a lot of these acting performances were great. I found it very interesting and very compelling. But yeah, like I said, a lot of issues here in this finale. But at the end of the day, it was worth the watch for sure. I enjoyed the series. Stick around. I'm covering Succession starting in about 2 weeks. I'll be probably covering Insecure. I'm not sure. There's all kinds of really good stuff coming out that I'm going to be covering. I'm probably going to finish up Squid Game tonight, do a video about that. I'll be wrapping up Scenes from a Marriage early next week. Wrapping up Ted Lasso at the end of this week. So lots of good stuff still coming. I've always got something coming down the pipe. So continue to hang around if you like these reviews, and I'll see you guys then. Peace.